Bad energy is rarely something mysterious. It is not a force floating outside of you, attacking at random. In Zen understanding, what we call bad energy is most often unresolved tension, unconscious resistance, unexamined habits of thought, and emotional patterns that linger long after their usefulness has passed. When life feels heavy, draining, or stagnant, it is usually because something within us is holding on when it no longer needs to. To remove bad energy from life is not to wage war against negativity. Zen does not teach opposition. It teaches understanding. What you understand deeply begins to loosen on its own. What you fight tends to grow stronger. The first shift happens when you stop asking how to get rid of bad energy and start asking how it entered unnoticed. Not as self-blame, but as gentle inquiry. Awareness itself is cleansing. When you bring light to a dark room, you do not need to chase the darkness away. It leaves naturally. Many people live as if their inner state is entirely shaped by the outer world. A conversation ruins the day. A memory changes the mood. A small inconvenience becomes an emotional burden. Over time, these reactions accumulate. They settle into the body. They color perception. This accumulation is what most people feel as bad energy. Zen invites you to slow down enough to notice this accumulation forming. You begin by observing how often the mind replays what is already over. A comment made hours ago. A mistake from years ago. A scenario that never happened but feels real in thought. Each replay injects fresh tension into the present moment. The body responds as if the event is happening now. Bad energy thrives on this confusion between past and present. The moment you notice this pattern, something important changes. You realize that much of what drains you is not happening. It is being remembered, imagined, or anticipated. This realization is not meant to shame you. It is meant to free you. When you return attention to what is actually here, right now, the emotional charge begins to soften. The body relaxes slightly. The breath deepens. You are no longer feeding the same loop. Zen teaches that the present moment is neutral. It is thought that paints it heavy or light. As you sit with this understanding, you may notice resistance arise. The mind may argue that certain feelings are justified, that certain thoughts are necessary. Zen does not deny this. It simply asks whether they are helpful now. Holding on to resentment may feel protective, but it quietly poisons the holder. Carrying regret may feel responsible, but it keeps you anchored to what cannot be changed. Worry may feel productive, but it drains energy without offering clarity. Bad energy often disguises itself as responsibility. To release it, you must be willing to rest without rehearsing, to sit without solving, to exist without constantly improving or correcting yourself. This is uncomfortable at first. The mind is accustomed to motion. Stillness feels unfamiliar, but stillness is where the deepest cleansing happens. There is a Zen story of a monk who approached his teacher and said he felt burdened by negative thoughts and heavy energy. He asked how to clear his mind. The teacher replied, "Bring me your thoughts and I will free you from them." The monk paused, confused. "I cannot find them," he said. The teacher smiled and replied, "Then you are already free." This story does not suggest that thoughts disappear magically. It points to something subtler. Thoughts lose power when they are seen clearly. When you look for them directly, rather than being carried by them, they lose their solidity. Bad energy depends on unconsciousness. Awareness weakens it immediately. As this awareness grows, you begin to see how often you absorb what does not belong to you: other people's moods, other people's expectations, other people's unresolved pain. Without realizing it, you carry emotional weight that was never yours to begin with. Zen teaches discernment, not isolation. You can be compassionate without being porous. You can care without absorbing. You can listen without carrying. When someone speaks from anger, it is tempting to meet anger with anger or to internalize it as something you caused. But anger is often an expression of inner conflict, not a reflection of truth. Bad energy spreads when it is mirrored. It dissolves when it is witnessed calmly. This is not about suppressing emotion. It is about allowing emotion to move through without taking residence. Emotions are like weather. When you believe you are the storm, you feel overwhelmed. When you recognize yourself as the sky, the storm passes without damage. Removing bad energy begins with changing this identification. You are not your irritation. You are not your fatigue. You are not your anxiety. These are experiences arising within you, not definitions of you. The moment you stop saying, "I am stressed," and begin noticing stress is present, something loosens. Space appears between awareness and sensation. In that space, choice returns. Zen does not rush this process. It allows it to unfold gently. Each moment of noticing is already a moment of release. Another source of bad energy is misalignment, living in ways that contradict your inner truth, saying yes when your body says no, staying silent when something needs expression, remaining in environments that drain you because leaving feels uncertain. Over time, this misalignment creates inner friction. Friction creates heat. That heat is felt as restlessness, irritability, or exhaustion. Zen encourages honesty but not impulsiveness. It invites you to listen deeply to subtle signals: tightness in the chest, shallow breath, a constant sense of resistance. These are not flaws, they are messages. When you ignore these messages, bad energy accumulates. When you listen, energy begins to flow again. This does not mean dramatic change is always required. Often, small adjustments restore balance. Rest when tired. Speak simply when something matters. Step back when overwhelmed. These are acts of respect toward your own energy. Respect is cleansing. You may also notice how clutter affects the mind. Physical clutter, emotional clutter, mental clutter, unfinished conversations, unresolved guilt, overstimulated attention. Each layer adds noise. Zen values simplicity not as minimalism but as clarity. When you reduce unnecessary input, the nervous system settles. When the nervous system settles, energy becomes smoother. What once felt heavy begins to feel manageable. Bad energy thrives in excess. Another quiet contributor is self-judgment. The constant inner commentary measuring your progress, comparing your life, criticizing your responses. This voice often masquerades as motivation, but it is deeply draining. Zen invites kindness toward the self, not indulgence, but understanding. You cannot shame yourself into peace. You cannot attack yourself into growth. When self-judgment softens, energy that was tied up in inner conflict becomes available again. This is not achieved by replacing negative thoughts with positive ones. It is achieved by seeing thoughts as thoughts, temporary mental events, not commands. You let them pass without engagement. As this practice deepens, you begin to feel lighter without trying to. Situations that once lingered now pass more quickly. Emotional recovery becomes faster. The mind returns to neutral more easily. This is not because life has become easier. It is because resistance has decreased. Zen teaches that energy flows where attention rests. When attention is no longer trapped in loops of reaction, energy returns to the present. This is the beginning of cleansing. Not through effort, not through force, but through seeing clearly. As awareness deepens, you begin to see that bad energy is often created not by external circumstances, but by the way you cling to them. Attachment is a subtle and persistent force. It tells you that life must be a certain way, that people must behave in certain ways, that outcomes must align with your expectations. When these attachments are not met, tension arises, frustration rises, and the mind becomes restless. This restless energy lingers, coloring each moment until you notice it. Zen teaches that life is in constant flux. Clinging to what moves is a recipe for suffering. The moment you allow what is to be simply as it is, the energy stuck in resistance begins to release naturally. This does not mean resignation or passivity. It means understanding the natural flow of life and choosing how to engage rather than reacting unconsciously. Another layer that generates bad energy is expectation. Expectation creates disappointment, even when life is not truly unkind. When you expect recognition, success, approval, or validation, the mind immediately measures reality against these standards. When there is misalignment, a subtle undercurrent of irritation or sadness forms. Over time, these small, unnoticed energies accumulate and manifest as fatigue, tension, and unease. Zen reminds us that the world does not owe us anything. Each moment arrives as it is, neither cruel nor kind. The energy of dissatisfaction only exists when we insist that life conform to our preferences. The first lesson in clearing this energy is to notice the expectations you carry silently, and to release them gradually, as naturally as clouds passing through the sky. Anger, resentment, and grudges are perhaps the most familiar forms of bad energy. They feel active and alive. They make you believe you are engaged with life. Yet they are heavy. Every time you recall an offense, your nervous system reacts as though it is happening in the present. The body tightens, the heart races, and thoughts swirl. Zen suggests another way. Instead of analyzing whether someone was right or wrong, simply notice what it feels like to hold onto this anger. Observe the tightness, the heat, the impulse to replay or retaliate. When you hold your awareness there without judgment, the energy begins to move. It softens, it loses its grip. Eventually, the past becomes past and energy returns to balance. There is a story of a monk and his disciple. The disciple came complaining of the constant irritation he felt toward a neighbor who had wronged him. The monk handed him a clay pot filled with water and asked him to carry it without spilling for a full day. The disciple did so, but by evening his arms ached and his hands shook. The monk then said, "This is your anger. You carry it every moment. Notice how much space it takes. If you release it, your life becomes lighter." The disciple set the pot down and felt the first taste of freedom. This story does not oversimplify life. It shows that holding onto negativity is a choice, often unconscious. By noticing and allowing, by refraining from feeding the weight with thought or emotion, energy naturally clears. Another powerful source of bad energy comes from the stories you tell yourself. These are subtle internal narratives about what is right, wrong, deserved, or feared. The mind is an expert storyteller. It can take a small incident, a word spoken, a glance, a minor frustration, and turn it into a saga of injustice, inadequacy, or failure. As these stories run, energy becomes tangled, stagnant, and heavy. Zen invites you to step back from the narrative. Watch the story as if it is someone else's. Notice the characters, the plot, the emotional peaks. As you witness without identifying, the energy tied to the story begins to release. You realize that the story is not you. The energy you carry is not permanent. Physical space and environment are also powerful conveyors of energy. Cluttered rooms, overstimulating screens, and noisy surroundings constantly feed the nervous system. Without realizing it, the mind stays in heightened alertness, producing tension that becomes subtle bad energy over time. Clearing space, creating moments of silence, and walking in nature can help reset the nervous system. This is not superficial. It is a foundational practice of awareness. Even the people you surround yourself with can influence your energy, not maliciously, but through their habits, moods, and unconscious states. Empathy, while beautiful, can become a channel for absorbing energy that does not belong to you. This is why mindfulness in choosing relationships and setting energetic boundaries is crucial. You can be compassionate and connected without carrying the weight of others' unresolved pain. Gratitude is another subtle but transformative practice. By shifting focus from what drains you to what nourishes you, the nervous system finds relief. Gratitude is not a forced exercise. It is a gentle recognition of what is alive, real, and sustaining. Every breath, every quiet moment, every small kindness is a seed of energy that displaces heaviness. Zen teaches that energy is fluid. When you resist, it stagnates. When you accept, observe, and release, it flows. You do not need elaborate rituals to cleanse. You need attention, presence, and willingness to let go. Finally, daily habits create cumulative effects on your energy. Sleep, nutrition, movement, and time spent in mindful reflection all influence the subtle body. Energy that is neglected through irregular rhythms or constant distraction accumulates as heaviness, irritability, or malaise. By aligning simple habits with natural rhythms, you restore flow and vitality. In this way, removing bad energy is a practice of attention, awareness, and subtle adjustment. It is not a battle. It is an art of living lightly. You notice, you release, and you allow energy to move naturally. Each small step compounds, and over time, your presence becomes lighter, calmer, and more luminous. As you continue on this path of awareness, another subtle layer emerges: habitual negativity. This is the quiet tendency of the mind to find fault, to anticipate the worst, to measure life by what is missing rather than what is present. It creeps in softly, often unnoticed, coloring perception and draining energy. Zen teaches that the first step is recognition, to notice that the mind has slipped into patterns of judgment without condemnation. Awareness itself interrupts the cycle. Simply observing a negative thought without chasing it, without arguing with it, without turning it into a story, begins to loosen the hold it has on your energy. With consistent practice, you start to see that negativity is often self-reinforcing. The more attention you give it, the more solid it feels. But when you allow it to move freely as clouds across a sky, its power diminishes. You notice that it is temporary, fleeting, and not an inherent part of who you are. In this recognition, a profound shift begins. You are no longer identified with the negativity. You are the awareness in which it appears, and this simple realization begins to remove the weight from your life. Another powerful lesson is the release of attachment to outcome. Life is unpredictable, and clinging to expectations creates subtle tension that accumulates over time. Zen teaches that by letting go of rigid demands, by meeting each moment as it is, you conserve energy that would otherwise be spent in resistance. When expectations are loosened, you act with clarity rather than compulsion, and energy that was tied up in anxiety or frustration is freed. This is not resignation, it is intelligent engagement. You respond fully to life, but you do not carry its burdens as if they were personal debts. Judgment toward others is another major source of internal pollution. The mind naturally categorizes, critiques, and evaluates, often unconsciously. Each judgment creates friction within, subtle tension that lingers in the body. Zen invites you to notice judgments as they arise, not to suppress them, but to see them clearly and release them. When you recognize that judgments are projections of your own conditioning, you begin to let them go, and with each release, your energy becomes lighter. The world no longer feeds conflict inside you. The air feels clearer. The body feels less tense. Presence becomes more natural. There is a story of a wandering monk who visited a village where disputes and quarrels were constant. He observed how the villagers carried anger like a burden, returning home each evening heavier than before. The monk said nothing but sat quietly in the market each day. Soon, the villagers noticed that when he was present, their tempers softened, conversations slowed, and space returned to the day. The monk later explained that he did not teach by words but by presence. The energy he carried was free from judgment, and in his presence, others were reminded of what it feels like to breathe without carrying weight. Energy is contagious. Negative patterns can spread if left unchecked, and positive presence can restore equilibrium. By cultivating calm, awareness, and non-judgment, you begin to radiate clarity. Bad energy still arises, but it no longer lingers as long. You are not at the mercy of external circumstances. You maintain your center. Daily reflection becomes a tool for purification. By observing patterns of thought and emotion at the end of each day, without criticism, you notice where energy has stagnated and where it has moved freely. You can choose to release residual tension, to allow irritation to fade, to forgive silently, to let go of small disappointments. These practices, repeated over time, create a habitual lightness, an inner environment where clarity and vitality thrive. Nature, too, offers a subtle but profound lesson in energy. Observing rivers, trees, and clouds reveals effortless flow. Water does not resist obstacles, it moves around them. Trees bend with the wind and return to stillness. Clouds drift without attachment. By aligning with these natural rhythms, your own energy learns to move without obstruction. When tension arises, you breathe with it, allow it to pass, and return to the natural state of ease that was always available. Another lesson is discernment in consumption of information. Thoughts and emotions are influenced by what you take in, whether it is conversation, news, media, or internal dialogue. Constant exposure to negativity, gossip, or fear creates subtle residue. Zen teaches the importance of selective attention. You cannot control the world, but you can control where you place your focus. By limiting unnecessary intake and prioritizing clarity, your energy is preserved. You notice that the mind functions more efficiently, emotions are steadier, and resilience increases. Movement and breath are also essential for cleansing. Energy stagnates when the body is immobile, when breathing is shallow, or when tension is held unconsciously. Gentle stretches, mindful walking, or conscious breathing allows energy to flow through the body, washing away accumulated heaviness. This is not merely physical exercise, it is energetic alignment. Each breath becomes an opportunity to release, each movement an expression of freedom. The practice of gratitude, previously subtle, becomes more profound as energy is released. By acknowledging small blessings, air, light, warmth, moments of kindness, you shift the focus from what depletes you to what sustains you. Gratitude does not erase challenges or negative experiences, but it dilutes the intensity of their emotional charge. The heart softens, and energy becomes lighter, freer, more luminous. Another quiet but powerful practice is mindful presence in everyday life. Eating, walking, speaking, listening. These simple activities, performed with awareness, act as natural purification. When you are fully present, energy is not wasted on distraction, worry, or judgment. Presence itself dissolves stagnation. Even mundane activities become rituals of energetic release. Finally, you learn that release is not a single act but a continuous process. Bad energy arises as a natural consequence of living in a world of impermanence. Awareness, presence, discernment, reflection, alignment, breath, and gratitude are the tools that allow energy to move freely. Over time, these practices create a life that is lighter, calmer, and more resilient. You do not need to chase peace. You cultivate conditions for it to appear naturally. At the deepest level, removing bad energy is not about chasing it away or resisting it. It is about transforming perception. Zen teaches that energy is shaped by how attention is given, how meaning is applied, and how attachment forms. When you see clearly that nothing outside can truly harm your inner space unless you grant it permission, the weight of negativity begins to fall away. This is the most profound lesson. The source of bad energy is rarely external. It arises from the mind's tendency to cling, resist, judge, or anticipate. When the mind relaxes its grip, energy moves freely. You may notice that many attempts to remove bad energy fail because they are reactive. You chase anger, fight resentment, or try to avoid negativity. In doing so, you unintentionally reinforce the pattern. Zen invites a different approach. Observe first. Allow the energy to arise. Name it if necessary. Recognize its impermanence. Then, with quiet awareness, let it pass. The energy is like a wave. It crests, then dissolves. No force is needed. No battle is required. Presence is enough. Detachment, another subtle tool, is often misunderstood. To detach does not mean to withdraw from life, ignore responsibilities, or stop caring. It means to engage without carrying the residue of expectation or judgment. Detachment allows energy to flow through you rather than remain trapped. A conversation can occur without leaving a shadow in your mind. A challenge can arise without lingering tension in the body. A difficult person can speak, and you can listen without taking on their emotional load. There is a Zen story that illustrates this beautifully. A student complained to his teacher that he could not stop feeling drained after encounters with certain people. The teacher asked him to watch a river, to notice how water passed rocks and obstacles without holding onto them. Then the teacher said, "Be like the river. Let their words, their moods, their intentions flow past. You are the observer, not the stone in the river." The student practiced this. At first, it felt strange, almost unnatural. Over time, he noticed that after each encounter, his energy remained intact. What once would have lingered and grown heavy now passed without residue. Releasing judgment towards self and others is also central to energetic clarity. Judgment binds energy. Criticism, blame, and comparison create tension in the body and mind. Zen practice is simple yet profound. Observe the judgment arise. Notice its shape, its texture, and then allow it to dissolve. You do not need to justify or reject it. You only need to witness. With repeated practice, judgments become less sticky, less forceful, and less capable of generating energetic weight. Another essential practice is conscious breath and embodied awareness. Energy becomes trapped when the body is neglected, tense, or unaware. Mindful breathing and movement reconnect the mind and body, allowing energy to circulate naturally. Even a single moment of deep, conscious breath can release hours of accumulated tension. When practiced consistently, the body becomes a vessel of flowing energy rather than a container for stagnant heaviness. Gratitude and appreciation serve as invisible magnets, drawing energy toward what nourishes rather than what depletes. A simple recognition of sunlight on your skin, the taste of food, the sound of a bird, or the warmth of a kind word subtly shifts energetic patterns. This is not forced positivity. It is natural alignment. As attention rests on what sustains, what is heavy no longer dominates. Energy is drawn back to clarity. Silence, often undervalued in modern life, is one of the most potent tools for removing bad energy. Noise, whether external or internal, feeds agitation, distraction, and subtle tension. By allowing periods of quiet reflection, walking without distraction, or simply sitting in the presence of the world without commentary, the mind and body return to equilibrium. Silence is not emptiness. It is the space in which energy reorganizes and returns to natural harmony. Intentional focus on the present moment further dissolves residue. Bad energy thrives in anticipation and rumination. By returning attention gently to what is occurring now, the mind stops feeding patterns of resistance. A simple act, feeling the breath, noticing the sensation of walking, observing sounds, anchors energy in the present. The mind's restless projections dissolve, leaving a field of clarity. Compassion, when applied wisely, also transforms energy. It is not about absorbing others' pain indiscriminately. It is about understanding and observing without entanglement. By recognizing that suffering exists but does not have to define your energy, you cultivate a sense of inner spaciousness. Energy that might have been trapped in reaction or judgment moves freely, and you respond from a state of clarity rather than a state of reactivity. Finally, consistency is essential. Removing bad energy is not a single act but a continuous practice. Awareness, presence, breath, detachment, reflection, gratitude, silence, and discernment all work together. Each moment of practice compounds, creating a life that is lighter, calmer, and more vital. Over time, you find that what once felt heavy no longer lingers. Encounters, situations, memories, and thoughts pass through without leaving residue. Your energy is intact, flowing, and natural. Zen teaches that the ultimate liberation from bad energy is the understanding of impermanence. Everything changes, everything moves, nothing is permanent. When you internalize this truth, attachment loosens, judgment dissolves, and reactivity diminishes. Energy is no longer trapped by events, circumstances, or other people. You become the sky in which storms arise and pass, untouched at the core. As the final lesson, remember that your awareness is your sanctuary. Bad energy may appear, but it only persists when given residence. By cultivating presence, observing without clinging, and allowing life to unfold naturally, you create an inner environment where clarity, vitality, and peace prevail. Each practice, each moment of mindful attention reinforces the sanctuary. Over time, it becomes effortless. Your natural state is light, calm, and free. Life will continue to offer challenges, moments of irritation, stress, or fatigue. This is inevitable. Zen does not promise a world without difficulty. What it offers is mastery over how energy is handled. By consistently practicing awareness, detachment, presence, and reflection, you remove the unnecessary residue of life. You meet each moment as it is, neither burdened nor depleted, and you return to your natural state of balance. And so, the journey of removing bad energy is not a battle. It is an unfolding, a gentle, continuous letting go, a mindful presence. A clear sky above passing clouds. Energy flows freely when you no longer resist, when you witness without clinging, when you breathe, move, and exist with conscious attention. This is the essence of the practice. This is the liberation that Zen invites you to experience. Through these teachings, slowly and naturally, your life becomes lighter, your presence becomes steadier, and your inner energy shines without obstruction. The lessons are simple, yet their effects are profound. By seeing clearly, releasing consciously, and allowing energy to move, you restore the natural vitality that was always available. Your inner space becomes a sanctuary, untouched by external disturbances, and your life begins to radiate clarity, calm, and ease. This is the ultimate gift of Zen practice, the freedom to live fully, without the weight of unnecessary energy, in harmony with yourself and the world around you.